Chairwoman. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the inaugural kickoff of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition's Lunch and Learn webinar series in celebration of the International Compost Awareness Week. I am Mary Allen, the Recycling and Education Director for the Solid Waste Agency of Northern Cook County, as well as a founding member of the IFSC and Silver Partner. So it's an honor today to be here at the kickoff to moderate today's webinar. I want to just say a special shout out to all of the members that were part of the planning committee for their time and their careful selection to bring you a variety of speakers that will share their expertise to coincide with this year's theme, Grow, Eat, Compost, Repeat. So Jen Jarlin, you have a little presentation. Jen Jarlin is chairwoman of our IFSC, and we'll take it from here.
Thanks, Mary. So I have prepared comments, so excuse me for reading. I'm Jennifer Jarlin, chairman of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. We're a not-for-profit organization working to advance diversion and composting of organics in Illinois with a focus on food scraps. We foster the growth and sustainability of the composting industry through connecting stakeholders, providing education and resources, and by being active in the community and implementing programs, and by focusing on strengthening the market for finished compost. Our members represent a wide spectrum of stakeholders, including community and government organizations, businesses, schools, institutions, service providers, compost processors, and individuals. This is just a slide that represents all of our sustaining partners that contribute at higher levels and our organizational members. IFSC formed nearly 10 years ago, hard to believe, over which time our membership has really grown. Our network has expanded. We have a wealth of resources available on our website, illinoiscomposts.org, and our active committees are hard at work. Please follow us on social media to see all of the great news about the growing success of the Illinois composting movement. IFSC is proud to be the Illinois chapter of the United States Composting Council and is excited to be joining our fellow state chapters in celebrating International Compost Awareness Week by offering this webinar series in Illinois. Today to reach out to us to find out more about how we can help you and what the benefits of collaboration are. IFSC is your local compost coalition, and because of your involvement as members and in our partnership with USCC, we are stronger and smarter and more effective as an organization. So please jump in and help us feed the pile. The theme of this year's International Compost Awareness Week, as you probably all know, is Grow, Eat, Compost, Repeat. Each day digs into one element of this cycle, starting with grow. Growing food, growing markets, growing knowledge, growing nutrient-rich soil. So today we plant seeds in the compost amended soil. Seeds that will become an abundant garden of understanding, interconnection, fruition, and harvest. Tuesday's guest speakers will be cooking up a buffet of topics that include eating, sharing, and preparing the food. Food that is life, food that is medicine, food that deserves to be respected and appreciated, not wasted. Wednesday's guest will compost, feeding the pile of knowledge and stirring up our interest and passion for recycling our food scraps through various means in a variety of settings. Thursday's theme is repeat. So we'll hear about how to complete the circle by rescuing food scraps and other organic material from a fate in the landfill, and instead turning it into a nutrient-rich soil amendment that will be returned to the earth in which we grow food. Finally, on Friday, we'll be bringing in a panel of compost experts to open up the discussion. This is a chance for you all to ask your burning questions around the virtual table. And now I'll turn the screen over to Mary Allen and our speakers, Theresa, Johnston, and Fred Daniels. On behalf of the IFSC Board of Directors, our active committees, and the planning committee for this online educational series. I thank you for attending and I welcome you to the feast. Bon appetit.
Thank you, Jen. Great overview. I'm very excited with our two speakers today. Our first is Theresa Johnston with the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. And let me just read a brief bio about Theresa before she begins her video presentation. Theresa received her PhD in environmental toxicology from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. She earned a BS and an MS in natural resources and environmental sciences with focuses in resource ecology, soil science, and urban ecology at the University of Illinois. She spent time at McGill University and the US EPA Atlantic Ecology Division for postdoctoral research before teaching at Loyola University Chicago for 3 years. Dr. Johnston now works in biosolids research and outreach as a senior environmental soil scientist at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. Her research focuses on, at the MWRD, is an application of biosolids and restoration of native soils using biosolids. So welcome, Theresa. Thank you so much for being here to share your expertise.
Thank you. So today I'm going to be talking about why compost helps our plants grow. One of the first big steps in having organic matter to put into our soil. So we take compost and we can add it into our gardens and other areas of soil, and it breaks down further and is becoming organic matter. So soil organic matter is incredibly important because it adds to the soil physical properties, chemical properties, and biological properties. Forward. So these can include, I'm sorry. I forgot they are all popping up. These include soil structure, soil porosity, bulk density, water infiltration, water availability, nutrient availability, the ability for that soil to release and hold on to those nutrients, so it's not just leaching through the soil. And then also it's providing habitat for our soil organisms, which are critical to helping that soil ecosystem function and stay healthy. Forward. And it's also helping that pest beneficial balance. So you're not having your gardens overrun with pests. So these are just a couple of examples from my own garden of growing in compost. And these include both commercial and homegrown compost. And that incredible benefit of compost improving soil quality. It's not just adding nutrients like you would see with a commercial fertilizer, but it's really improving that soil health, and it helps those plants thrive in our garden ecosystems. Forward. So one of the physical changes that we see is that we're seeing these improvements in the highways of the soil. So when we just have soil particles that are getting compacted over time through various uses such as gardening, we see that difficulty of water to penetrate the soil. We see root issues with penetration as well. But when we actually have that organic matter added to the soil, it helps create what are called soil aggregates. And so these aggregates create greater pore space that allows these highways to form, which improves water movement. It helps that root growth. And through this movement, that nutrient availability increases because it can travel with that water and the roots can access those nutrients better. In addition, that soil organic matter acts like a sponge. So it's holding onto a lot of that water for longer periods of time than soil that doesn't have it. So this really is improving a lot of those general growing conditions for plants. Forward. We're also seeing that addition of nutrients slowly released throughout the season. So rather than just spraying a commercial fertilizer onto the plants that can easily leach through the soil, this compost is slowly breaking down and releasing nutrients over time. And this is important because now you're not having to continuously add something, but you add it one time during the season, and you see these incredible benefits throughout the entire growing season. Additionally, an example on the left of this slide would be a soil particle that doesn't have a lot of clay in it. So something that has maybe a lot of sand or silt, and it doesn't have a lot of spaces for nutrients to stick to it. So clay does have a lot of those spaces, but that is one of those situations where if you have too much clay, that's where you see some more soil compaction and water problems. On the right side, we see soil with a lot of organic matter. And so now we're seeing those physical benefits that I just talked about, but it's also providing those sites for nutrients to stick to. Forward. We also see those biological benefits that I mentioned. So on the left side, we see soil that's been highly disturbed. And we want to shift the soil from this highly disturbed situation to something that looks more like the right side, which is a native view of soil. So this native soil is thriving with abundant life forms, including a lot of different invertebrates. Now, a lot of people think that having insects in the garden is a bad thing because you have these pest species. But in reality, if you have a thriving ecosystem in your soil, you have thousands of beneficial insects and other life forms for every single species of pest that you have. So you actually want this thriving ecosystem instead of something that looks like that system on the left. Slide. And some of these really important organisms are microbes and fungi. So what we see is these organisms are helping break down that organic matter. They're helping create it, the soil ecosystem by releasing the nutrients, turning that organic matter into forms that stabilize in the soil and help create those highways. And then they are also involved in that nutrient cycling. So as things are dying and decaying, they're breaking it down, adding it to the soil for nutrients for the plants, and then the plants can grow. As those die off, we see that cycle repeating over and over again. Slide. So I wanted to show you one example that I accidentally came upon in my own garden. And so the point of everything I just described is that compost is leading to better soil. And what I saw firsthand is that this better soil is leading to better plants. So the top picture is when we planted my cauliflower and broccoli at the end of March. Everything was approximately the same size. And then as you see in the bottom pictures, I did not add compost on one side of the garden. On the other side, my husband had added some compost. And I'm going to have you watch a video now so you can see a little bit more closely how these plants differ. Last March, my husband and I created a new garden. Over the winter, we covered it with leaf mulch. We also had some composting poultry manure that my husband had spread on one side of the garden with the intention of adding more throughout the garden as we generated it throughout the season. I was so eager to garden this spring, I forgot about this lopsided application and jumped right into planting. All of my broccoli and cauliflower were seeded indoors under the same controlled growing conditions. They were grown in the same growth media, under grow lights, with the same access to water from below. I planted them outdoors at the end of March. The plants to my right were grown only in that leaf litter and otherwise unamended soil. Those on my left were grown in composted poultry manure. As you can see, the plants on my left are about 4 times the size as those on my right, showing you the incredible benefits of composting. I can't wait to do a taste test later this spring when they're ready for harvest. Thank you. And one thing that I failed to mention in the video is that those are all the same varieties too, on the left side and the right side. I just made a little aisle for myself to access the plants. And so it really is a drastic difference, variety and species wise. Okay, slide. Okay, slide again, sorry. Okay, so there's going to be a lot more on composting on Compost Day this week, but I just wanted to briefly describe to you what composting is if it's new to you. So composting is taking biodegradable materials such as plant material, animal manure, or biosolids, and serving it up as food for anaerobic or oxygen-loving microbial communities. And through a natural biological process, that biodegradable organic matter is converted from what it was into a rich soil amendment that will improve our gardens, farms, and soil ecosystems. I really encourage people to compost because it is easy to do. A lot of people have sort of a fear factor about it because they've heard that it has odor or attracts pests or something. But one really important thing to do to keep any of those fears from taking place is to just make sure you have the right balance of carbon to nitrogen. So you want to keep about a 2-to-1 ratio of brown materials, so something like newspapers or wood chips, to green material that's something like your kitchen scraps and fresh yard waste. And that helps compost maintain a fresh, earthy smell. It reduces pest attraction and it prevents it from getting black and gooey. So if any of you have had those little bins on your counter, which is something that I have, and you go to dump it out and it's black goo, this is because you don't have enough brown material in it. And a lot of times that just really discourages people from continuing to do it, when all you need to do is throw a handful of wood shavings or newspaper in there as you add other materials. And you'll notice an incredible difference. And the reason we need both of these is because the brown and the green material is because we need a balance of carbon to nitrogen. And if we don't have that proper balance, either we get that gooey sludge and we don't get the compost that we're expecting, or if we have too many browns, it just takes a longer time. So it's still not ideal, but it is much more forgiving than not having enough browns. And it's healthy to do this. As I've shown, it really improves our soil health, and that also leads to a healthier human ecosystem. So why do we want to lose all of those incredible nutrients to landfills when we can just cycle them through our own systems? Next slide. At the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, we have 2 exceptional quality or EQ products. One of them is called air-dried biosolids, and the other, which I'll be talking about today, is EQ Compost. And EQ Compost is a really great product because it takes all of these benefits of compost and it's produced on this large scale. So what we do is take raw materials, 1-to-3 ratio of dewatered biosolids to wood chips from Cook County. So biosolids are the products remaining after the bacteria have broken down everything in that wastewater. And so this is like the small dead organisms that are remaining after that process. These have a lot of those nutrients, okay? So now we have nutrients, but we also have that physical material that is going to improve the soil in so many ways. This is actively composted for 21 days and cured for 4 months. And then it's tested to make sure it meets all of the US EPA standards for being classified as exceptional quality. And then at the end, we screen it for a consistent size. So now I want to show you some of the uses for it. Slide, please. So what we recommend in using compost is to mix that composted biosolids into soil at a 1-to-2 ratio. So this is great for raised beds, and we have a lot of community gardens and residential users throughout the Chicago area that use our composted biosolids for just this purpose. They want to create these wonderful raised beds. And we don't recommend using it 100% compost in these areas because soil does provide so many benefits as well. So we want that nice mix. Just like you don't want to make cookies out of straight butter, you want to mix in the sugar and other ingredients as well, right? So we want to have a proper ratio. And this really helps those raised beds thrive. If you want to add it directly onto garden beds that are in the soil, you can either use it as a mulch, which many people do, or rototill it into a 6-inch depth. So we recommend spreading about 2 inches for mulch, or tilling this into that 6-inch depth. and then you'll have benefits throughout that entire growing season. And those soil improvements add up over time so that your soil is improving year after year. Finally, we've seen a lot of people use this for tree establishment or just tree care. And for this, we recommend a ring of about 2 to 4 feet around a newly established tree, about 3 to 4 inches deep, and then pull away from that trunk so that you don't have water held up against the trunk. And this kind of makes a donut around the tree. Some recommendations are to add it in as you're planting that tree during tree establishment as well. But you can add it to trees that are already in the ground through this mulching. Slide, please. And here are some examples of the impacts that EQ Compost has. So on the left side, we have Maggie Daly Park in downtown Chicago. A custom soil was designed using EQ Compost. And then the same was done for Ping Tom Park up in the upper right corner. And these parks were established using this material because it provides such great benefits, especially in these urban areas where that soil is already degraded. And then the lower picture is, as I mentioned in the beginning, my home flower bed that I added EQ Compost to and saw some great results with my zinnias there. Slide, please. So what we've found is that by having this EQ Compost available, we see so many community gardens using it and having their gardens thrive. So we recommend this for, as I said before, raised bed gardens or in-ground gardens. And this is bringing communities together, helping improve these sites. The photos on the left and below are a community garden in Chicago's Austin neighborhood, and on the right is in Berwyn. And these were all used EQ Compost in their beds to produce all of their produce and flowers. Slide. So as I wrap this up, I challenge you to start your own compost journey. For one, if you're really new at this and not sure where to start a container garden and just mix 50-50 compost and a soil mix. And this will help get you started. You'll get familiar with the material and you can plant anything you want in there. It can be treated just like any other compost. Add compost to your garden beds. So if you're feeling a little bit more garden savvy, you can add this larger quantity. Adding 1 to 2 inches can provide nutrients for all season. So like I said, it's a slow release product. You don't have the risk of burning your plants by adding too much. You're really just going to continue to improve your soil. If you are looking for places to get compost, I can help you get some at the MWRD. We have 6 bring your own bucket piles that you can go and show up with a bucket and shovel and scoop as much as you want. Or if you're interested in a bulk order of 10 cubic yards or more, you can visit our website at mwrd.org/EQ Compost. And there you can also find the locations for those bring your own bucket piles. And outside of the Chicago area, look for programs in your community. But also stay tuned throughout this International Compost Awareness Week to learn more from all of these other speakers about the great compost opportunities. Thank you very much for taking the time to listen today.
Thank you very much, Theresa. That was very informative. And for those of you that have not yet started that composting journey and would like to maybe dip your shovel into it this growing season, the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition does have some very methodical, simple steps to take to understand the nitrogen and the carbon mixture and how to take care of a pile at illinoiscompost.org. We are holding questions until after Fred's presentation, so I will go ahead and introduce him. And for those of you that have questions for Theresa or as Fred talks for Fred, please put them in the chat and we definitely will address them at the end. So Fred, thank you very much for joining us today. Fred Daniels is with Growing Home. Growing Home's farm is managed by Fred, who is a 2010 graduate of Growing Home's employment training program. After graduation, he was offered a position as a farmer on the Wood Street Urban Farm at Growing Home. Over a span of 10 years, Fred has been promoted to farm manager and now urban farm site manager. His 10 years of experience farming and managing a high production farm qualifies him to manage this project. He has multiple certifications in urban agriculture, farm management, and organic farming. Fred's expertise extends beyond the farm to food handling, food safety, soil health, farmers markets, and culinary arts. Fred received his culinary arts certification from Illinois Central College. Thank you very much for being with us today, Fred. We look forward to hearing from you.
All right, how everybody doing? My name is Fred Daniels. I'm the Grunt Home Site Manager, Urban Farm Site Manager at Grunt Home. And I'm looking forward to share with you all today. So we're gonna be sharing a short video.
Are you sharing that? Oh, good.
There we go.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Grunt Home. Step into our farm. So right here is our multiple purpose space. Right here, we actually do our pack out, our washing, our packing, put everything into the cooler. We also start our amazing seedlings, which you can see here. We got some basil going, fruit collard greens, some celery, spinach over there. This is pretty much our nursery right here, where we start our seedling trays, and then we move them over here under the light until they get big enough, and then we transport them outside so they can harden off. So this is one of our many hoop houses. Right now we currently have 7 hoop houses, and the hoop houses is basically used to extend the season, so we're able to have food longer during the year. So before this site was developed, it was basically just concrete. We worked with the city, and the city actually helped us develop this site, and they just paved it full straight concrete. So we didn't have to remediate this site or nothing like that because it's all solid concrete. From there, we brought in compost, which you can see, this whole house is filled with compost. It's like 2 feet of compost up in this hoop house. So we brought in all of this compost. It was just piles everywhere. And then from there, we got these hoop houses built. So this is not topsoil up under there. It's just straight compost, raised bed, and that's pretty much it. For me, I feel like growing in compost is the best. Everything, it grows well, looks good. Compost is just organic matter that's broken down. So like you can make compost from, like here, what we do, we'll put a layer of vegetable scraps, then we'll put a layer of straw, then we put another layer of vegetable scraps, another layer of straw, and just let it naturally break down on its own. Versus like the topsoil, you'll see more topsoil like in a rural area. So if you was going towards Marseilles, you'll see a lot of cornfields. That soil is different from the compost that we is actually growing there now. So we'll start dumping in one of these bins, and once it starts to break down, we turn it, so we'll turn it into this bin and start dumping a new batch over there. Once this starts to break down, we turn it to the last one, which is the third one, and let it finish completely breaking down. From there, we'll take like a shifter and, shift the compost out of there to separate some of the debris that may not have already broke down. We'll put it through like a little screen to separate it. We also have compost that we have picked up. So we work with a company called Angelic Organics, and they'll come on site and pick up the compost because we really don't have the capacity to have so much compost on site. So we work with them to get rid of some of the compost as well. Here at Growing Home, we bring in all of our compost, like even our outdoor field. This is all compost in what's considered a raised bed. So we don't actually grow in the topsoil, the regular soil. We grow our straight compost. Because being in the city, like certain places, you may have to remediate the land, or it may be contaminated with different things in it, like metals, lead, things like that. So we don't just grow in that soil. We actually build on top of it and do raised beds. And that worked better for us because it eliminates the risk growing in compost of like growing food in contaminated soil. So we choose to bring our soil in versus just dropping seeds in the ground. Some of them do have mixtures because you'll see like sand up in there. Sand actually holds water. So when we purchase the compost, the medium is already mixed in. So we don't have to add nothing to it. We just keep replenishing it. So as the nutrients, like the plants take the nutrients, we add our own amendments, which is nitrogen, potassium, and magnesium. We add that back to the soil every planting to keep the soil fertile. We use the compost the whole growing season, but as the level of the compost get lower, we add more to keep the height of the compost. So like we grow carrots. Some carrots will grow 10 inches. So you will need that amount of soil so the carrot can reach its peak. So we'll keep replenishing our soil, adding to it every year. So we source our compost from different sources. So I was mentioning Purple Cow, Midwest Organics. It all depends. So compost is kind of pricey. So we source organic, and we also try to get good compost at a good price as well. So we always shop around. Even with seeds, when we source it organic, and we shop from multiple organic seed places. Things I always look for is like the pH level. That tends to be like the biggest problem, because you can get compost with a pH of like 8.75, you know, things like that. We try to get a pH around like 6 to 6.5, because that's what the crops really like. So I get soil, and we do soil tests on the compost to see what the pH levels and the nutrients in the soil is. And it's pretty easy to produce. You know, you like if you got a home garden, just your food scrapes, you can imagine how much nutrients you can get from just food scraps at home, and just do your own compost small. Because if you already got your dirt there, your compost will just be something to help mediate the soil. You just add amendments back and nutrition back into the soil. And it's easy to do, whether you start in buckets, or you just have a little patch in a corner somewhere, or you get like a turn-in, you know, it's multiple ways you can do it. And it's all natural. I encourage more people to start composting. And it also helps with the environment as well. Instead of like having so much waste, you can turn that into something where you can grow food. So right now we got some, to the left is you'll see lemon balm. We got some thyme growing in the back. Here we got lettuce, we got radishes, we got turnips, arugula, brassica mix, some collards, spinach at the end. So we got a lot growing right now. I'll say most excited about the farm stand being open, being fully back up and running. I'm excited about just being able to speak with the customers again. You know, with COVID still going on, and last year everybody was shocked. We were surprised with COVID. Just being able to engage back with the customer, from the farm to the table, you know, just have them conversations like we normally would at the market. I'm also just looking forward to our CSA. Our CSA, we have 100 shares this year, so we never went that big. This is our first time jumping to 100, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that play out, how that goes. So I'm excited about that. I also was gonna say our community garden. I'm excited about the community garden. If you look across the street, we turning that site into a community garden where the community can come, plant things, work with us in the garden, take home whatever they like. So I'm looking forward to that as well. We're gonna be building out boxes and just filling them with compost and popping in some plants and watching it grow. Hello.
All right. Fred, did you have anything else to say before we get into the Q&A? That was a wonderful presentation via the video to give us the full scope of all the good that's going on at Growing Home. You're muted, just in case you're talking. We can't hear you.
Okay, not too much more. I'm just happy to be here and share, what I've learned over the years. And pretty much like Theresa was saying earlier, like compost is, fairly easy to do. And I think everybody should do it because it adds a lot of nutrition to your home garden, especially just starting off small. So take your time, man. You'll get to see like the benefits of, actual composting and how composting is also good for the environment as well. Because we get rid of a lot of things when we could just be composting and using that to benefit from. So.
All right, thank you. With those comments, then I know that we have some questions. I am going to go to that list. So let's see, we'll take one here. This is for Theresa from Sue. How is Metropolitan Water Reclamation District assuring their compost is free of the jumping worms?
So the composting process that we use, the compost has to reach 55 degrees Celsius for 21 days. And so that's a very high temperature that the worms are not able to survive through. It's also, the compost facility is not in contact with any soil. So it's just on a hard concrete or asphalt surface. And so there's really not access for the worms to be reaching those compost piles either.
Thank you. Theresa, the second question is for you as well, for Mary Beth. Are there any soil remediation projects that MWRD is doing with its EQ compost in Chicagoland?
Yes, right now we're working in the Illinois International Port District. They have a couple of sites that's down in the Calumet area. They have some sites that were previously under industrial use that they have asked us to help supply biosolids and compost for remediating their soils there. And right now we're trying to build up a remediation program. So if you are familiar with any sites in the Chicago area that a municipality is looking to improve those places, please let us know, because we would love to be able to give them access to this really great free soil amendment that can help reduce the contamination in local soils. So that's one of the big pushes that we're making right now. And I'll put my email address in the chat as well, so that if anyone does have sites that they are aware of, you can send me an email directly.
Thank you. And then adding on to the EQ compost, a question by Jenny for Theresa. What is the delivery radius for EQ compost?
So right now for EQ compost, we're delivering within Cook County. There are some exceptions, such as nonprofits or park districts, things like that, that are outside of Cook County, but within about a 30-mile radius. For residential use, though, in order to get the free compost, you would need to go to one of our 6 plants and access it there, rather than having it delivered if you're outside of Cook County.
Great, thank you, Theresa. This next question is from Liz, and it's for Fred. Fred, what produce will be in season on May 13th?
May 13th. So right now we still dealing with cold weather crops. So we have like arugula, salad mix, lettuce heads, kale, collards, mustards, turnips, radishes, multiple herbs. So we have like cilantro, thyme, savory, rosemary, mint, lemon balm. Yep. So they're mainly ones, like majority of the leafy greens, so spinach as well. And we already started markets, so it's like, that's what we have now.
My question, what do you do with lemon balm?
So I like to make a beverage with it. So I make like a nice little tea, or some people put it in different type of foods, but I know most of the times I seen it, it was used in a beverage.
Thanks. That was good to know. I've never heard of lemon balm. There is another question here for you, Fred. How many students will go through the Growing Home program each season? How about job placement and opportunities? And that question's from Benjamin.
So this year we did something different. We actually have 4 cohorts, and it's a 12-week program. We started the 4 because now we heating 2 of our hoop houses, so we'll be able to grow year round. And we looking to have at least 65 people go through the program this year. And the graduation rate with that be somewhere around like 90 or more. So it's somewhere there. We haven't got through it yet, so I don't have the exact numbers, but.
Thank you. And does Growing Home also sell to restaurants in the area? Mary Beth wants to know.
Yes.
That's awesome. Any idea how many restaurants you sell to? I know during COVID, things probably have been extra tricky.
Last year we started working with the Leah Mission, who was helping restaurants. So we kind of like all connected to like, you know, try to reach out to restaurants, and they reach out to the farms to still be able to get produce. So we deal with at least about like 6 restaurants now.
Benjamin Crumstock has a comment. He asks which restaurants, if you know the 6, that you could share with us so that we can try and extra support them.
So I probably can't name them all right off the top of my head.
Tell you what, if you could get that information to Liz,
Okay.
or to Jen Jarlin, we would be happy to share with our membership.
All right, that'd be perfect.
At a later date, and keep us posted, because we like to frequent we compost restaurants for extra support, and for those that are buying organic from you, certainly that would be high on our priority list as well.
All right.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Will your CSA, Fred, go year round because you have the heated hoop houses now? Liz B wants to know.
It'd have to be a certain type of CSA box. It wouldn't have like a lot of the summer crops in there. It'd be something that we'll have to experiment with, because this would be our first season actually doing it. And from there, we'll pretty much decide basically like what the focus will be, whether it be like a CSA or indoor market type of setup or something like that. So that'd be something we figure out this year.
For subscribers to the Growing House CSA, do they come there to pick it up, or do you have local areas throughout the Chicagoland that they can pick up their box?
Yep, so you actually have 3 options. You can pick up at Green City Market, you can pick up on site, and you also can have it delivered.
Wonderful.
Last year we did mainly door to door, so it was like no really contact. It was just drop off at the door, call, and that was it. We still have that option as well. And we working with other places to try to, you know, figure out a certain mile radius where, you know, maybe we can partner with you and drop off 10 boxes there, because it's closer for someone else to pick up at that site versus like coming down to the farm. So we're just trying to weigh all the options and just see how we can just work together to get the food closer.
Terrific. I'm sure as you grow, there's growing pains in some of the learning that we all have to do. So that's nice to know that you're looking at flexibility and you're looking at efficiency. Let's see. In the chat, Hope from Growing Home has some extra information regarding the Lee Initiatives Restaurant Reboot Program. That will be in the minutes or in the chat now that you can take a peek at. And other questions so far have been answered. We're coming to a point right now where all answers our questions have been answered, and Jen Nelson has about 9 minutes left that she would like to highlight the committees and what they have achieved, and would like to share with those of you that are on this webinar. So thank you again to Theresa, thank you to Fred. Both of them are very accessible. If you have additional questions, Fred, if you could put your email in the chat as well, and then Liz can disseminate those with minutes. We thank you for your time and for sharing your expertise this morning. And now I'll turn it over to Jen Nelson to highlight our committees. Don't forget to unmute yourself, Jen.
Welcome to this International Compost Awareness Week program, and thank you for participating. Welcome on behalf of the Compost Market Development Committee here at the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. I'm Benjamin Kromstock, chairman of the committee. The diverse backgrounds, experiences, and perspectives of our IFSC members are strengths and assets. The Compost Market Development Committee is a subgroup with great diversity and skills. The IFSC core mission of food scrap diversion from Illinois landfills can only succeed if we have adequate and accessible organics processing and recycling resources to handle those materials. The CMD committee has a core mission of educating potential compost users and expanding sales of quality composts manufactured in Illinois. IFSC, now the home of the Illinois chapter of the U.S. Composting Council, and CMD in particular, are working to create market conditions which support existing Illinois composters, create opportunities for increased organics processing capacity in Illinois, and create conditions which might incentivize or enable more processors to accommodate more of the food scraps which the entire organization is working diligently to divert from landfills. Our Illinois composters have to operate within the parameters of real-world business economics and physical space constraints. So the sale of their finished products at fair prices and in sufficient quantity is critical. CMD also facilitates dialogue between food scrap and other organics generators and diverters, organics haulers, and the composting facilities which ultimately receive and have to handle those organics. This committee is working to develop best management practices, BMPs, which achieve the goals and respect the constraints of each participant in the organics recycling pathway. This is no snake oil sale. Compost is a useful and valuable product. The application and incorporation of compost is valuable in projects which range from small scale, such as residential lawns and gardens, to large scale, such as roadway projects and sports and recreational turf management, for example. Please consider participating as a member of the Compost Market Development Committee if you represent a compost manufacturer, a food scrap or other organics generator, a material hauler, a landscaper, a landscape architect, or are a member of the general public who would like to see your municipality, school district, park district, or public works department use compost to achieve benefits which include, but are not limited to, improved turf health, reduced flooding, reduced erosion, and reduced requirement for the use of chemical pesticides and herbicides. If you have any questions or would like to join the committee, please feel free to contact me. Thank you very much.
Hello and happy International Compost Awareness Week. I'm Joyce Scrogum, chair of the IFSC Social Media and Website Committee. Our role is to spread the word far and wide about the benefits of composting food scraps and uses of finished compost, and to help create a sense of community through a steady stream of fresh content on social media platforms. We share highlights from member organizations, celebrate organizations that have been recognized through the We Compost program, offer relevant news and case studies of interesting programs and innovations, and engage virtually not only with members but composting enthusiasts throughout Illinois and beyond. We also support the board and other committees by assisting with website content maintenance and development and posting regularly to the IFSC blog. IFSC has accounts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, as well as a LinkedIn group and a YouTube channel. If you're an IFSC member and interested in becoming involved, just send me an email at jscrogum@illinois.edu, and I'll send you information on how to join our next committee meeting. We meet via conference call on the fourth Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Nelson, and I'm with the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition Education Committee that has some really fun members, and we all bring a little bit of ourselves to the work that we do. Our committee is responsible for developing website resources to help educate. We've created a residential food scrap composting guide, one-pagers that can address a variety of different topics from municipal composting to Compost 101. And we've also been a big part of webinars and forums and town halls that are held to help educate about composting. I'm sharing some images. We have Kay McKean from Scarce, Walter Willis from Swalco talking about policy. And then one of the big things we do is we take a look at the numbers and the data and determine the best way to share that data in a way that's understandable. So what does it mean, the work that we're doing? Our ultimate role is to educate about how to make food scraps into a high quality finished compost that can be used in soil to grow more food and more plants. Thank you for joining us. Please consider joining the work of the Education Committee. We are a fun group, and our work is really determined by our members and their interests. Thank you.
So what are you waiting for? Learn more about the Education Committee on the second Tuesday of every month at noon.
Hi, I'm Mary Beth Shea. I'm a zero waste consultant with Collective Resource Compost. I'm also the chair of the We Compost Recognition Program Committee. We give recognition to the entities that divert their food scraps from the landfill through commercial composting. We have 5 easy asks or calls to action. Please peruse the recognition program section on IFSC's website at illinoiscompost.org. Entities might seem like a science fiction way to describe our We Compost partners, but you'll see that we have 6 broad categories. Restaurants and catering companies, this includes other food and beverage businesses like breweries, distilleries, juice bars, coffee shops, and confectioners. Grocery stores, farmers markets, food co-ops. Businesses, this category probably has the most surprises. Included are photography studios, venues, florists, architecture, and law firms. Institutions and organizations like museums, faith communities, food pantries, rebuilding warehouses. Universities and schools from preschool on up. Municipalities, here's where we keep an up-to-date list on the municipalities that have franchise agreements with haulers and offer composting options for their residents. I hope this illustrates that composting can happen anywhere. Number 2, if you're familiar with any of the names on the lists, reach out and let them know that you think it's terrific that they are committing financial resources and extra effort to help mitigate climate change through composting. Number 3, use these lists to begin composting conversations with the places you spend money and work. Peer pressure works. Number 4, if you know of an entity that is composting that's not already on this list, help us give them recognition by connecting us. IllinoisCompost@gmail.com is the IFSC email address. The more contact info you give us, the more likely we'll be able to reach them. And the final ask, join our committee and help us do this fun work. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Katsaros, and I am the co-chair of the Communications Committee for the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. Our goal is to equitably strengthen the composting community and support organizations and individuals to expand access, awareness, and distribution of the resources that the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition puts together. And our committee does this by working with other committees to celebrate their wins and identify the most pressing communication needs. We also create messaging that effectively communicates the goals of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition and brings in new voices to the composting space. We plan and execute member appreciation events when possible, or otherwise just work to help people network, virtually, and essentially be able to kind of share their expertise and get to know one another and potentially opportunities to work together. The membership of our committee is fairly diverse. We've got experienced composters and new enthusiasts. They represent businesses along the organics value chain, as well as public sector and beyond. which really reflects the IFSC as a whole. And, we field requests for speaking engagements and virtual presentations, which we're doing a lot right now and have been during the pandemic. We've run into like an ongoing effort to find aligned organizations and build partnerships, and then plan convenings of stakeholders to address issues like compostable plastics, transparency, and just develop solutions to advance composting across the state. So if you're interested in helping us build and strengthen our network and yours, the Communications Committee is for you. So please join us. Thanks.
Thank you. That was a wonderful overview of the committees and all the hard work that's being done. I have 2 action items for you. If you have not yet visited the IFSC's website, please go to illinoiscomposts.org to see all of the work, all of the information, and get started composting. Well, that was kind of a sub one. And number 2, please join our multi-stakeholder team. Become a member, and let's keep the conversation going. And please join us tomorrow at noon for some our next level of speakers. And thank you again today for Theresa and for Fred for sharing. Good day, everybody. See you tomorrow.